Good morning and warm welcome once again. And all of you are actually joining us on a very special morning. Actually, it's the most significant day in the calendar of us here at the Brahma Kumaris. And the day holds that special significance because it's actually the day in which our founder, Brahma Baba, way back in 1969, on the 18th of January, he actually, on a physical level, we would call it passed away. But for all of us here at the Brahma Kumari, we actually believe that it was a very sacred moment of ascension because Brahma Baba, up until that point, had engaged in such intensive spiritual efforts that he actually reached another level of spirituality. And it was the moment in which we believe he began to actually operate not from the physical dimension, but the soul actually began to operate from a subtle dimension, actually as an angel. You'll see Brahma Baba's picture behind me, and you might be familiar with it. Brahma Baba is dearly loved as our own father, the founding member of the Brahma Kumaris, and he created a family of all of us as individuals. But he's also very well respected as a teacher. And for me, just having heard the stories of Brahma Baba and having had personal experiences in meditation, authenticity has always, for me, ever since I actually was very young, authenticity has always been a mark of something that's true. And Brahma Baba's authenticity when it comes to his spiritual practice has always been an inspiration. In absolutely everything that this individual did, spirituality was so apparent, and that attraction of soul consciousness and the warmth and comfort of the connection was God could be felt, could really be felt. And our session is about willpower. For me, Brahma Baba is the role model of willpower, someone who has been able to hold on to his resolution, his elevated aims, very, very elevated intentions at every point in time, and actually further refine and further develop them so that ultimately it actually enabled him to attain that point of ascension into an angelic level. And I want to actually share with you what Sister Usha and I extracted from Brahma Baba's life as something that can actually aid all of us on our effort for this month of willpower. The last three words that Brahma Baba actually spoke just before he passed on that evening on the 18th of January 1969, he was actually sitting up on his bed. There was only one other individual in his presence, which was Dadi Prakashmani, and she later on actually took on the mantle of leadership of the organization. So whilst holding her hands, he uttered three words, three very beautiful words, three words that hold amazing power. Well, he spoke in Hindi, but I'm going to give you the translation. The three words are bodiless, egoless, and viceless. I feel this is a formula, just like a power-packed formula. We've been speaking up until this point and actually reiterating in every session the value of stepping inwards and separating ourselves from the awareness of our physical body, but more especially just every level of the physical identity. Of course, we acknowledge that we're operating within this context, but we want to bring to the fore and highlight that energy, that key spiritual energy that is actually within and who we really are. And in meditation, but as well as in life, the ability to constantly withdraw and connect on an inner level. And again go back to the true self, to the true identity, the being of light, and to inform everything that I say and do from that perspective, that I am the one that is actually operating through the body. I am actually not this physical body. I'm seeing through this body. I, the soul, am hearing through the body. I, the soul, am speaking through the body. I am not these roles. I am not these relationships. I, the soul, within the body, am playing the role of this and that. I, the soul, within this body, am engaged in this relationship. Whomsoever. It's a very powerful practice. It's actually more than a practice. This is our reality. I am the one without an image. I, the soul, am bodiless. I, the soul, am using this physical body and the physical context as my vehicles to navigate my way so that I can actually give expression to everything that is latent within me, and that I can add beauty and benevolence in whichever way possible in the world. And this is the aspect of being bodiless. Further developing that, when I understand and realize on a very deep level that this is actually my true identity and who I am, then I start to actually disidentify with all of the former levels of identification that, in a sense, guided my sense of identity. And it wasn't really just something that guided my sense of identity. In a sense, if I think about myself, there's a tendency to actually become attached to different forms of identity, whether it's the roles I'm playing, whether it's physical aspects, and categories that the body lends itself to, like my age, my race, my gender, my religion, my culture, my educational background, my profession, all of these things. When there's a false identification with any of these external factors, and there's an attachment to that identification, then I unfortunately can fall into the trap of shifting my focus and investing my energy into wanting to then prove myself through those categories and through those external factors. It's all well and good if there's the experience of success within these external categories and factors. But and I know in life, sometimes there's failure, sometimes there's success, sometimes there's praise, sometimes there's criticism, sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's sadness, sometimes there's appreciation of me operating within these categories and roles. Sometimes there's a total lack of appreciation, and further to that, demands and expectations, somebody imposing some sort of sense of duty on me that isn't feeling like it's coming from a natural space. And so when we encounter those hiccups, the sense of identity then shakes, because when I'm attached and I'm holding on to those identities, I want to prove myself, obviously through the success of those categories. And when any of these obstacles come along the way, then it creates stress, it creates added pressure. How do I actually overcome this and still achieve success within any of these roles, relationships, categories, etc. And this is the mental space that we then get pulled in, the emotional roller coaster that we get pulled in, and life can become actually quite turbulent. And when we go back to it, it actually stemmed from that false identification and attachment to those identities, which is actually quite a harsh term. It's actually ego. I never need to prove myself. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. When I'm bodiless, I'm aware of it. But when I'm caught up within the attachment of all these external things, I'm not aware of it. And so then it's a strain. And so egoless, or defining, broadening and deepening our definition of the ego and being egoless, is a freedom, really an ultimate freedom, a freedom to be who I am and express myself authentically from a very comfortable space. And then further developing that, when I'm bodiless, when I've reached that peace, rest, and comfort of being egoless, knowing as sure as anything I am shining through, and no need to work and prove, then there's a fullness internally. And within this fullness, within this sense of completion, there lies humility, there lies contentment, and it's actually a platform for the expression of all things beautiful that are inside of me. And so I become viceless. I am the one with all virtues operating on that very beautiful level, decorating my life and the life of others with just divine qualities. The opposite of virtue is vice. When there's still the experience of the ego and I'm holding on to these identities and wanting to make my mark through those categories, then I might want to shortcut my way to success. I might want to shake things up so that I can get the outcomes and results that I require. And that's the breeding ground for arrogance and anger and jealousy. Jealousy is a huge one. And I mean, I'm not even going to go into the details of all the vices. You know as well as I know what the experience of getting into that negative space is internally, but also what being the recipient of somebody else's expression of the vices is. And we don't want that. We want the opposite. We want to be virtuous. And so that's the formula. One is in a very deep way interleading and opening the pathway for the other. Bodilessness, opening the way to being totally egoless, and egolessness opening the way to being totally viceless. And Brahma Baba worked this out. He understood and he succinctly sort of summarized his entire spiritual journey and the secret formula for success into the statement of these 3 words, which for me just goes to show how being an elderly person when he first came to the Brahma Kumaris, which was about 30 some odd years prior to that, and having led a full life as a family man and as a businessman, he practiced separating himself from all those old patterns that he might have used when he was operating through the body, when he was actually working from that space of attachment to his roles, responsibilities, and physical categories. And I'm not too sure to what extent they might have been on a subtle level or a gross level expression even of the vices. And obviously those weren't his aims and he worked it out. And I marvel actually at how this individual unlearned all of those old ways of operating and arrived at this new formula for a completely wonderful new way of being. And the way I see it, when one unlearns old, deeply established patterns that actually get further entrenched through repetition, when one unlearns it, one actually unleashes the way to something totally new and totally beautiful. And so it's a very beautiful process of unlearning and unleashing, encapsulated in these three words: bodiless, egoless, and viceless. At this point, I'd like to bring Sister Usha in. We've had some lovely conversations, on this concept, and she explained certain things to me, and I prefer if she actually shares it with you because I won't be able to explain it in the way she does. So over to you, Sister Usha.
I have to remember now what I said to you, hey? But as I was listening to you, the powerful image that came to my mind is that Brahma Baba really was able to be a student. So even at that age of 60, the unlearning, when you try and forget something, it's very hard. But because he embraced the knowledge that I am not this body, I'm a soul, so he accepted this new understanding, and everything that was being taught to him, which is really lovely that he became the first student. So I love that idea. He is our mentor because we can always look at the Supreme and think, well, yeah, Supreme is Supreme, we're not going to get there. But he was a man, he had a family, he had a business, he had a name in the community, all that traditional things that he lived with. But when his understanding of the truth was so clear in his awareness and his understanding or his intellect, he used just understanding to start acting on it. And that became the beginning of new habits to be created. Or, in fact, it gave him permission to bring back those original habits that was already innately, intrinsically in the soul. And so, in a sense, what is so powerful in this thing is that none of us actually have to have certain criteria to live this spiritual life. I mean, there's someone who's already 60, did everything, got all the badges. Some people say we gone there, get there, and that's it, we can't do more. But he became a student at that age. For me, it's phenomenal. So it shows us that when truth comes to our doorstep, it has its own power to kind of translate us back into students, children, and give us that experience. And as you were talking about Brahma Baba, I was just thinking, everything he did was he became the student first. So there was one very beautiful story where there's something needed to be done at 9:30 at night because it was needed for the next morning. And it was grain that had to be cleaned because he wanted it to be prepared in the morning. So when he indicated to the person in the kitchen that, do you have the grains? And she sort of said, it's there, but it's not clean. So he said to her, no problem, keep everything in the kitchen. And so she had the trays that you use to kind of see through the grain. And she had the bags placed there. And after class, everybody follows him to say good night to him. But he didn't go to the normal place. He walked to the kitchen. And so they all followed him to the kitchen. And he took from the bag out a scoop full of this grain and he started, seeing it through to de-stone it. And so somebody who was next to him said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll do it." So he handed his plate over. Then he took another plate. And then he put again for him and he started, de-stoning. And like that, everyone in that group that followed him took away the tray. And so what would have taken one person maybe 45 minutes to an hour, because everybody took a tray, it took everyone just 10 minutes and all of that grain was done. And that's actually how he worked. He didn't come across to be that headmaster telling people what to do. He understood what needed to be done and he taught a lot by his own example, his signals, but he never compromised on anything. I felt that Brahma Baba kept that high principles not because he enforced it, because internally he valued who he was. So when you bring back that idea that when I'm bodiless, I'm able to really keep my vision on that beautiful star-like being that has never been limited by anything physical. So I see that full potential to be incorporeal. And that I like that word incorporeal when you think about the word bodiless, that I transcend all the things that people have used to put me in a compartment and I rise above it. So I'm actually in a very unlimited form. And as soon as that image of myself as being bodiless is in my awareness, then I can also see very clearly how I've actually been living with fear so often, because the ego is what locks everything about me into little compartments, and it actually creates fear, because when I'm out of that compartment, it's like I don't know what to do. But when I step into this full awareness of being that unlimited light, I actually put light on really who I am. And then those compartments melt away. And that also allows me then to bring out more potential within myself. And the beauty of that, sometimes I don't know it because I may have forgotten it. But when I take the first step of courage, it's almost like that positive energy brings help as well. And so in Brahma Baba's life, it's another virtue I felt is that he had the great courage to hold faith and keep moving forward. And so he learned as he went ahead. And then obviously when the ego doesn't have any power over you, all the compartments fall away, all of that, and then everything that is true about me, which are the virtues, are really something that can easily shine through the things I do in my day-to-day life. And Brahma Baba wasn't teaching from a podium or a kind of a standpoint that I'm the teacher. You know, his teaching style or his way of imparting knowledge was always a father sitting and all the children sitting around. So it was like thinking about how our grandparents would tell us stories about what they did. And basically, he's also sharing his experience, and we learning from the things that he did and how he learned to do it differently, and then people experimenting with that. So I also want to invite everyone to know that no matter what we've been speaking about, sometimes these topics can seem like, oh God, not for me. But really speaking, to have faith that your intrinsic self is really that beautiful being, and inside of you does lie that being full of virtues. And just hold on to that, because you are the creation of the divine. And then take little steps, and you'll see how just taking the right one little step in the correct direction, the direction of your real self, actually starts creating its own momentum. And slowly that will beckon to you to bring out more and more. So spirituality is not like a whole shopping list that I create and then I tick off little things. I feel spirituality is just the first step that we take. And as we start that first step, the next step follows. Because you know what it is, you lift your one step and you put your foot down, the back leg naturally just gets up, or it lifts off the ground, and then you put it forward, and then that's the whole process. So you're moving forward in a very natural way. And really, that is the invitation. Don't make spirituality a far fetched big thing. It's your living, it's your daily activity, and infuse in it your authenticity of being a spiritual being. So I think that that's really what I'd like to add to it, because it's really, you're right, it's a formula for us to be very happy in this life. I wouldn't say Brahma Baba's life was like a bed of roses, because they lived in Mount Abu, where during the winter periods would be very cold. Um, because he also stopped working, he didn't have an income, so they didn't have lavish lifestyles. They had to work on day to day on how they were going to manage everything. So, and also for the first time, he was living in a community with 350 people. It's not something he was born with. He lived in his own home with just his family, and then at the age of 60, when he should be relaxing, he's now living in a community with 350 people. So much of adjustment, but nothing of it was like a renunciation or a giving up. It was just a very beautiful experience of exploring and discovering. So I would like to invite each of you to not look at spirituality as a giving up and having to resort to go somewhere, but just look at what you're doing here and see if you can bring in your self-worth into the process. And then from that point of self-respect, how the goodness in you emerges as you do things and enjoy the journey. So, Sister Divine, do you want to finish up with a meditation, or how shall we?
Thank you very much. And yes, let's end with the meditation. This beautiful day is all about the celebration of angels. Brahma Baba being that shining example of a living angel. In front of me, I see the subtle image of luminous bodies of light embracing the world, covering the world with the softness of love and peace. It brings a feeling of deep rest and comfort, contentment, knowing that the light, the guidance, protection of angels surrounding the world. I take this moment to now broaden my concept. Transform my visualization of what it is to be an angel. Looking through this image, I see further potential. I see myself on a tangible level. Within the world I know, with the people I know, doing the same things that I'm familiar with. But there's now a difference. That's my outer world, but it's not the full entirety of my whole world. within my inner world, there exists an environment very similar to this picture that I'm resting my eyes on. Like a parallel universe. I'm learning how to play with spirituality. I know internally how to keep my mind connected, where to let my heart stay safe. And that's my process of unlearning. On a tangible level, everything is going on. But in the invisible dimension, I'm alert. And aware and awakened. Incorporeal, not confined to any compartment. And so very naturally as a soul, in a state of fullness and expansiveness, emanating the purest vibrations of all things beautiful, and naturally connected to the source that keeps best of me activated and flowing. I'm responsible. I engage in my roles and my relationships to the best of my ability. But I'm wise enough to understand that therein does not lie my identity. And so I'm not attached. But I engage with detachment. My self-respect, my value, my sense of worth stems from a deeper space and is amplified by the vision of that one who knows me and understands me and sees me for who I really am. And so I'm not trapped in the game of victory and defeat, praise and defamation, success and failure. I'm above all of it because I am egoless. With all of this unlearning remaining in my incorporeal state, having been freed from the traps of ego, an energy has been unleashed. An energy that is a gift to the world. And this is how I touch everyone and everything that I come into contact with. Sharing invisible jewels more precious then diamonds and pearls. Sweet love, warm and tender, unconditional love. Complete serenity and tranquility coming from the depths of true peace. Amazing fortitude, determination, courage, coming from core of power. Being bodiless and egoless has enabled me to unleash all virtues and all spiritual powers, and I'm now viceless. This is the mark of I, the living angel. Going about my business, looking the same as everyone else, but sweeping across the atmosphere and penetrating the atmosphere with the magnet of pure vibrations. My gratitude to Brahma Baba, the role model who taught me how to walk in his footsteps and become this living angel. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you. So have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.
Om Shanti, and thanks to all of you. And please have a wonderful day. It's a special day, so plug into the vibrations. Om Shanti. Bye-bye.